everyone, welcome back to a rather sad episode of Project Honda Civic SI. I'm on the road in the Civic, actually headed to a repair shop for, I think, one of the first times we're taking this car to a repair shop. I'm headed to E-Man's shop out in Ventura, California. He goes by K20Z3 All Motor for the win. He is a repair shop who works on these late model 8th, 9th, and 10th gen Civics. He's kind of the go-to guy for powertrain stuff, engines, transmissions, stuff like that. I need to back up and explain why I'm going to E-Man's shop. I was driving the car in traffic a few days ago, kind of just doing regular day-to-day activities, shifted from second to third at around 5,000 RPM. Then all of a sudden there was a big loud bang, and I just felt it in the front of the car, and I heard the big bang, and the car just ground into third really hard. And ever since then, now the car is really hard to get into or out of gear. All the gears, the clutch pedal feels a little bit lighter, and when you try to take off, try to go off the line, like in first or second, the transmission howls like crazy. So I'm suspecting either I had a clutch failure of some sort or something in the transmission just shit the bed. The clutch has never slipped in this car after 115,000 miles. I'm a pretty good manual transmission driver. I'm pretty careful about that. So there's never any slipping, but I do know that these Honda 6-speeds have an issue with clutch failures, where basically there are a sprung clutch disc and those springs can sometimes pop off the clutch. I know that can happen to these cars. Or I've also heard about the pressure plates just breaking on these things for random reasons. And obviously there's the very serious issue with the synchronizers in the transmission, especially in second, third, and fourth, just falling apart. Out of all those, I'm really just hoping this is a random clutch failure, and that hopefully if I can get E-Man to replace the clutch, since I don't have the capacity to work on this car right now. I've been really swamped with moving to a new location and changing jobs and all that. I've not had time to work on anything. I'm hoping E-Man can pull the transmission out of this car, find out it's just the clutch, put a new one in there, and then we're back to good. Otherwise, it's going to be a really sad and very, very expensive episode. So I'm making the drive out to his shop, Ventura. It's about an hour and a half drive, and we'll see what he has to say. Alright, so I arrived at E-Man's shop, and the plan was to just drop my car off, and I'd actually booked a train ticket back to LA. But after talking to E-Man, he sympathized with me and said, hey, if you just pull the car into the bay, I'll get cracking on it right away. And that's exactly what happened. So again, I wasn't planning on filming too much here, but he's kind of a one-man team for the most part. He put the car in the lift and started disconnecting stuff and basically dropped the front subframe assembly, and that gave him perfect access to the transmission. And then I kind of helped him drop the transmission out of the car just because he needed a second set of hands, and here's what we found.
Yeah, the spring fell out.
Oh. So that'll do it.
That's your issue, man.
Oh, the actual, material's good.
Yeah.
That's like mint.
Yeah.
Okay, well, cool. Glad just that.
What I'm gonna do though is I'm gonna remove the flywheel. Yeah, I won't leave take off the flywheel then.
Oh yeah. It broke off in one big piece, didn't it?
Yeah, it broke off in one big piece and it got stuck in there, so that's perfect.
Okay guys, it's a few weeks later and the Civic is all better. It's healed. I drove it back from E-Man's shop, and I've since put about 500 miles on it, pretty much around town miles, some freeway miles. Kind of varied up, kind of try and break in the clutch as per Exidy's recommendations. So I guess I should explain what ended up happening. So once E-Man dropped the trans with like a tiny bit of my help, We were able to see that the clutch disc basically just exploded. Like I said, one of the springs let go. Due to my requirements with this car, my needs, not making crazy power, nor do I plan to, and I'm not particularly interested in putting tons of money in this, we ended up agreeing on an Exedy OE replacement clutch. So basically, if you went to a Honda dealership and said, I want a new clutch in my Civic, that's probably what they give you. There is one caveat to an Exedy OE clutch, or any like the Exedy Stage 1, Stage 2, or whatever clutches, and that is that you need to specify an OEM throwout bearing. So the Exedy OE replacement clutches come with an Exedy branded throwout bearing, and they just aren't very good. Multiple people told me this, and email is no exception, so he actually threw out the throwout bearing that comes with the Exedy clutch and went to the Honda dealer and bought an OEM one straight off the parts counter. With that in, the car drives like you'd expect a stock car to drive. Clutch is pretty light, easy to drive in traffic. There's a bit more we need to talk about though. Alright, so I got some pictures and videos of the clutch when E-Man took it out. Basically, here is what happened is that if you look, there's actually tons of meat, tons of friction material. This is, what the clutch actually is touching. Even at 115,000 miles, the disc is not even half worn yet, which is great. Again, stock power Civic is not going to burn through clutch particularly fast. But again, it's this plate here that holds the springs in place that just fatigued from heat, and then the spring ended up popping out and breaking its assembly, and the spring was literally just rattling around inside the bell housing. This is a bit of a PSA now. So I was talking to E-Man. Obviously, this guy deals with 8th, 9th, and 10th gen Civics all day. So, I mean, this guy has torn apart and rebuilt more K-Series and L-Series and whatever Honda engines you can possibly imagine. And so he imparted some wisdom upon me that I want to share with you guys. So with K-Series, what happened to me is actually very, very common. I mentioned that at the beginning of the video, but E-Man says this is extraordinarily common, especially as these cars get older, is that with the friction material, especially on a stock power car, you're not really going to burn through a clutch. That's pretty uncommon. But instead, you're going to just have general fatigue from age. I mean, my car's a 2010, and so the clutch is 9 years old, has 115,000 miles, and a decent amount of track time on it, as well as a lot of just daily driving and commuting. So having the springs and the clutch explode is actually not that uncommon. Fortunately, it didn't really cause any sort of long-term damage, which is very good. Now, you may be inclined to say, well, why don't you just get an unsprung clutch? And there are some aftermarket clutches available that forego clutch springs. And unfortunately, with the K-Series, that's not a very good solution, I have to say. I knew this from anecdotal experience, and E-Man kind of backed me up here, is that you can buy unsprung aftermarket clutches, but they tend to be very heavy and very hard to drive, especially around town, just because those springs kind of insulate things. They insulate noise, vibrations, and kind of just make the car better to drive around town. But there's actually a bit more to it than that, because most of the unsprung clutch options available in the aftermarket, according to E-Man, are not that reliable in the K-Series transmissions. According to him, basically, in addition to the actual discs not being super great to drive on a lower power car, not being particularly reliable, I didn't know this, but apparently K-Series cars do occasionally experience crank walk issues if you run a super aggressive clutch. Now, basically, with an unsprung clutch, most aftermarket clutches can be really heavy-duty racing clutches. They have a lot of clamping force, and basically that clamping force pressing down on the thrust bearing against the crank can actually cause the crankshaft to walk back and forth kind of in the journals. And not only can that damage the crankshaft, it can damage the whole bottom end of your engine. And if you're familiar with like the memes around the 4G63 community, like the Mitsubishi Evos, DSMs, things like that, are infamous for crank walking at high power. Basically, that can end up pushing a piston and a rod through the side of your block, and that would not be very good. Additionally, it's just kind of a push and shove, right? When push comes to shove, something has to fatigue first, something has to fail first. And so say you do get a super aggressive racing clutch in your car, something else is going to give. And now normally with a K-Series transmission, that will be your hydraulics. So your clutch master cylinder and your slave cylinder. There are a bunch of aftermarket options for those on the market, but according to E-Man, and again, if you just Google this, a lot of the aftermarket solutions out there, not very reliable, very robust, or just much of an improvement over stock. Aftermarket slave cylinders will leak, or master cylinders will get stuck and not actuate the clutch properly. And then there's also a bit of an anecdote about this car, is that Honda made several changes and tweaks to the 8th Gen Civic over the years, and in late 2009, my car is 2010, they actually did make some changes to the transmission in order to reduce gear grinds, which are a very common K-Series problem. Now obviously they did not eliminate it because I'm still experiencing my 2010 car, but they did, among other things, change the hydraulics on the transmission in the late 2009 Civic SIs. So this car actually has the updated hydraulics. They actually did change the master cylinder to a slightly better design. So if you do want to update your master cylinder, many people actually recommend getting the 2010 Plus OEM one. Then from there, even if you don't want to upgrade or you already have a later model Civic like that one, there is one basic thing you can do, and you can adjust your master cylinder. E-Man actually has a great video on YouTube channel. If you just go on YouTube and search 8th Gen Civic clutch master cylinder adjustment, you'll actually see his video explaining how to do it. It's very simple, but basically you should ensure that your master cylinder in your car, even if you're not messing with it, is actually adjusted properly, because in my car it was not. Just over time, due to fatigue, the adjustment rod can move or back out and actually cause your master cylinder to not be adjusted properly. And basically, that will affect how well your clutch engages and disengages. It's a very simple DIY. I'm glad I double checked mine, did it a few months ago because mine was way out of whack. And that basically ensures that, you know, when you press the clutch down, you're getting the full actuation of the pedal, and you're getting the full transfer of the hydraulic fluid to the slave cylinder, and that your clutch should actuate, engage, and disengage as it should. So this is my cautionary tale, my bit of a story time to you. Again, this is pretty common. So if you're having issues with your K-Series transmission, whether it's grinding, lockouts, things like that, there are a few things to look out for. If your clutch pedal suddenly goes very light or very stiff, plan on replacing your clutch soon. And if your clutch starts to slip after presumably 1 billion miles or a lot of abuse, keep in mind those few tips I've mentioned. You definitely want to use an OEM Honda straight from the parts counter throwout bearing. And you definitely do want to use a sprung clutch of some sort just to reduce overall fatigue on your transmission. That's all I got for this episode. Quite a lot of talking. Hopefully you found it informative. It has been a very expensive episode of the show for me, but the car seems to drive back to normal now. Haven't had any gear grinds since, and I took it as a good time to change my transmission fluid again. So hopefully I'll be back at the track very soon with Project Civic SI. Hope to smash more lap times. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe if you've not already. It definitely helps me out and going to events and things like that. And stay tuned for the next episode where I go do more fun things with cars. All right, see you later. Bye.